Hello, dear listener, and welcome to another edition of the OddJob Pod. This time hosted by teachers who've won the lottery and have decided to go on sabbatical. Yes, this is also a notable OddJob Pod because we're all in the same room together. And gentlemen, actually, I can remember when the last time was that we were all in the same room together, Terry and Graham. It was pretty much exactly a year ago when I came back over to the UK. It's almost become an annual thing now. We could start an OddJob Pod convention if we wanted.
That's a brilliant idea. We should totally do that.
Do we get goodie bags?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But do we have to invite other people, though? Okay.
There is a long list of people who want their picture taken with Gary.
Is there?
Is there really?
Yeah, it all goes all the way down the hallway now.
Oh, that's them, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. I thought they were here for the beer.
Which one of you tipped off the paparazzi?
Yes, the Shoreham Herald is outside right now.
Yes, snapped man taking bins out. Yes, hello. This is the OddJob Pod. Those were the voices of Terry DeFellin and Graham Sibley. I am Gary Andrews. I am in the UK for one pod only, and so you will get maybe a different vibe on this one than when I'm sort of half awake in Australia at 6 a.m. in the morning. And it kind of felt fair that, we should do a film that requires a lot of talking about, I think. One where there is a lot of discussion and one that divides rooms like nothing else. I'm pretty sure that, if we walked into the crowd of people outside who are waiting to meet and greet me, half of them would be like, ooh, Quantum of Solace. And half of them would be, ooh, Quantum of Solace. And it's a fascinating film. So, Terry, I'll start with you. Are you a, ooh, Quantum of Solace? Or are you an, ooh, Quantum of Solace?
No, I've always been an, ooh, Quantum of Solace guy. Ooh. Absolutely. I heard that this film wasn't very good before I went to see it at the pictures. And then I went to see it and I thought, this is a perfectly fine film. I really enjoyed this film. And so, in fact, it was in the very, very, very early days of Twitter. And I posted my reaction on Twitter.
You posted a hot take.
Using TwitVid, if you remember that thing. TwitPic. And when they did TwitPic video, yeah, remember that?
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. And I was on an escalator going, and I says, yeah, it was all right. That was quite decent, actually. I don't know what the fuss is about. And that was it. Because that's all you got back then. Yeah. But, which, happier times. So, yeah, very much Team Quantum of Solace. Although, obviously, having watched it most recently with a view to recording a podcast about it, it is probably fair to say that there are reasons, and good reasons, why for many Bond fans, this is not their favourite film.
And Graham, are you a ooh or a ooh?
I think I'm a oh.
Well, that's neither one or the other.
No. I know, exactly. A bit horribly centrist, that is, isn't it? For an opinion.
Yeah, how is that fence underneath you?
Yeah, it is. Do you know what? It's a little incomplete. That's what this fence is like. And that's my opinion, really, in a nutshell. But we have a lot more to talk about, don't we?
I certainly hope so.
We do have a lot more to talk about. Quantum of Solace, obviously, the second of the Craig Bond films. One that was, as most second Bond films tend to be, rushed out after the success of the first one. Eon had a big hit on their hands. They'd successfully rebooted the franchise. And then they got hit by a writer's strike. So, Terry, this probably explains, I would say, a little bit of some of the problems in terms of the background to Quantum of Solace, and perhaps why it starts from a place of not necessarily being as tight or as good as some of the really good Bond films.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have a problem like that with the writer's strike and you've got limited time to be able to get your scripts in and done and submitted, and with fewer opportunities for rewrites as you're going along, then you're always going to be quite sticky. But it's interesting because I do think that there are aspects of the film that probably you couldn't put down to the writer's strike. And sometimes you wonder, well, I used to work in claims, on a claims helpline for a major insurance company, and it was always the claims that you recorded wrong in the first place that ended up continuing to have problems all the way through. And this is one such instance. It's like it started off, I think, somewhat ill-conceived, and I don't think it ever really quite recovered from that. And it does show in the final print. Even though, as I say, I very much like and enjoy this film.
I'm put my cards on the table. I quite like Quantum of Solace. It's a film which is perfectly watchable. It's a very, it's short, which may be some of its problems, but it's a very good evening of entertainment. Graham, as well, that obviously you've got a fantastically successful and very popular and critically acclaimed film, which is rare for Bond, in Casino Royale, and not just you trying to rush out the script through the writer's strike to capitalise on it. You have a different director at the helm as well, Martin Campbell, obviously, declining to come back for this one, and so instead you've got an indie filmmaker, Mark Foster, in the director's chair for this one.
Yeah, and he wasn't the first choice either.
No.
Because the first choice was Roger Michell. Thank you very much, the director of Notting Hill. So yeah, someone who comes into it late. Well, I mean, I don't know how to direct a film, so I don't know how that affects.
It wouldn't stop you though.
No, obviously, because I'm a 21st century man, and obviously I don't know anything about this sort of thing. But I reckon I could give it a go. Don't we all? And obviously it does. And I don't think the direction of this film is the problem.
No, not at all.
And I think that there's actually a lot in this to really enjoy about it. The use of CGI is perhaps another thing that we can. It creeps back in again in this film, having had such a terrible outing in Die Another Day. But I think it's not about the directing or the performances. I think what happens is that the directing and the performances actually make this film. It is the script. It is the script that is the problem with this film from all the way through. It's like it's a first draft that's being used.
Yeah.
And to the point where you think that they've left filling lines in there, and we think, well, we'll pad that out in later drafts. It wouldn't surprise me if in one scene Judi Dench stands up and says Lorem Ipsum at some point, because I think that's how much that we are waiting for text to arrive in this.
Isn't part of the problem is that Michael G. Wilson and Mark Forster were rewriting the script during production as well, neither of whom are script writers. I mean, Michael G. Wilson is a ridiculously talented man,
yes,
but not a jobbing at work at this point in his career, not a jobbing script writer, and that they're having to sort of try and tweak this script when really it needs a professional script polisher to come in and do it, because they have guys like that.
Yeah,
but they were of course all on strike at this point.
No, and it's missing that thing that we have from Phoebe Waller-Bridge or any other number of good script polishers that they have brought in to the subsequent films and the films beforehand as well. These are the things that this film is missing. I can see why fans of the franchise really enjoy this film, because it's like one of their little hidden gems that they like because other people are left nonplussed by it. But I can see why people are left nonplussed by it. I can especially see why people who are into films don't like it. Into films generally. I mean, because I think you have to like Bond to like this film.
Yeah,
I think
it's fair to say we like Bond.
We do,
so
indeed, yes.
Hence we fall into that. But Terry, you can definitely see what could have potentially been with this film.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think that the biggest problem with it, as Graham says, is obviously the script, but it's also it's a hurried film. It's a short film. But there's an awful lot there. Well, there's not an awful lot going on here, but there's a promise of an awful lot going on in this film, and I think that causes the frustration. I remember during the climax of the film, and thinking to myself, "This is the climax of the film, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm watching the end. This has come way too soon, and I don't feel as if there's been enough." I mean, what it does do is it does make you appreciate the skill and the plotting of historic James Bond films, because I think it's easy to look at a bog standard James Bond movie and say it's like out of the box, it's sort of like really formulaic, but the manner with which these movies sort of like bring the audience with you up to the point where you get to the ludicrous, often very ludicrous climaxes, is a skill, and it's a quality of these Bond films, and it was missing in Quantum of Solace. That it sort of went from James and Felix having a very short drink in the bar to the climax of the movie, and it was very, very jarring. And I just thought, well, that just doesn't. I mean, I'm still enjoying this film, but it just. It all and it still catches me unawares now, and I must have seen it about 10 times, and it still catches me unawares now. So yeah, it's just a hurried film. Sony wanted this movie, the distributor wanted this movie out ASAP because they wanted to cash in on Casino Royale success, and then it set off a whole chain of events, some of which were beyond Eon's control, and some weren't, to produce this rather hurried movie.
And yet it actually did quite well at the box office.
It was the most successful James Bond film up to that point when it was released.
Yeah.
But this is because everyone had watched Casino Royale and realised how brilliant it was, and wanted to see the follow-up.
Yeah, totally. And, when you come into it as well, you watch the first few minutes, and one of the familiar refrains that regular listeners of this podcast will know is that, a Bond film knows what it is from the first few minutes. You can tell kind of where they're going, and if it gets that consistency wrong, it's not particularly brilliant. And Graham, I mean, the opening is genuinely the car chase of coming in. Now, obviously, you've had a couple of years since Casino Royale, so you've got to remember what's happened at the end of Casino Royale. But it's a pretty fast-paced start to it. And I remember when I first watched it, I went, "Ooh, this is a great little way to start. Great car chase." And I was waiting for it to properly kick into the rest of the film, and it kind of hinted at doing it and never quite got there. It's not quite Die Another Day, complete pivot into nonsense, but that opening bit sets you up for something which isn't necessarily followed throughout the rest of the film.
No, and a great callback to the novels, to basically pick up where the last one ended off. Literally picking up where the last one left off. This is must be half an hour after the last film. The great touch is when he uses the gun through the door that's been ripped off. The same gun he actually shot White with at the end of the first film, and I did not spot that the first time. I probably didn't spot that the first four times.
I didn't spot that at all. Nice, that's lovely.
Yeah. But it's that sort of follow through there, and I suppose that's what you do get with the fact that it does come out when really this is probably still doing the rounds on the movie channels. So you are getting that thing of people watching it and still being up to date with Casino Royale, because a lot of people came to Casino Royale after it had been on general release because there'd been such a gap. The last film had been such a turkey. There wasn't that much confidence in Craig as Bond. Of course, that was all put to bed with Casino Royale, but that came with time. It didn't come instantly. And I think it is to their credit that they didn't just completely blow it with this film. Considering the amount of problems they had, they come up with a really, really good film. And this opening scene is just really does suck you in. It really does hook you, because you're right there. No gun barrel. Okay. All right, we can deal with this, and I know at the time, Terry and myself, we were
still working through issues.
No gun barrel.
No
gun barrel.
Yeah. So okay, so we had to deal with that. Fine. Okay, but then we're given this immense car chase, and it does lead you in with what the action's going to be like for the rest of the film. Now, I love a bit of action in a Bond film, but when it's being used as filler, which it is in a lot of the film, then I get a bit turned off by it. I just switch off. It's yeah. Here we come. Like high body count, lots of guns firing, but the start, I think it's faultless, really, especially with having M there as well, coming to Sienna, the underground complex, the interrogation, and then coming out with the race around the main square in there.
And those, I mean, I think that's also a quality that Mark Forster brings to this, and that's it. I think that these are his signature in those moments. It's the chase through the crowd, which is really because Mark Forster engages the extras in with the movie. You see the consequences once of the go. You get people getting shot. And this isn't, and it's quite violent. It's quite brutal. There's one sequence when you've got one bystander and he's looking directly into the camera. I mean, that would have been certainly as we'll keep that in. And you've got the bystanders who are engaging with the film and with the audience in a way that you don't normally associate with James Bond films. And I thought that was really effective and really, really good.
It is I think we've already picked up early on in this podcast, and most people do. The pacing of the film is a bit of an issue, but as Graham said, Terry, while the action is used as filler, it's actually, if you took this as just a purely action film, if you take Bond out of it, it's actually a pretty serviceable action film. It's got some very, very well shot, very well constructed, very enjoyable action sequences, if all you want to do is sit and watch action sequences.
Totally. It's a really, really good action film. But what it isn't necessarily is necessarily a really good James Bond film. Because it's missing some of the classic hallmarks of a James Bond, of authentic James Bond. It's light on humour. The villain is just. I mean, we'll talk about the villain later, but the villain's setup is not really ideal. You expect a little bit more ambition from a James Bond film, a little bit more ambition in the plot, a little bit more ambition in the setup, and it feels like a taut political action thriller. And you probably, I mean, there are better taut political action thrillers out there, to be fair, but it's a decent example of one. But I'm not certain that is really what, as a Bond fan, I really want to see, and I'm quite pleased that they didn't go down that route after this movie.
I mean, if you want an action film, you really want your baddies to be stealing a truckload of bearer bonds or something like that, rather than trying to overthrow Bolivia. I think that's...
I want to see them try to hit James Bond with a tube train. That's the kind of James Bond that I want to see. At the time, it was, again, I mean, I think as I talked about in the previous podcast, I was weary of the hijinks, sort of like James Bond stuff, and wanted a more downbeat, more, I guess it's a loose term, more Fleming-like, although that in itself is not entirely accurate. No. But something more lo-fi, a little bit more downbeat, and I got that with Casino Royale, and I got that with Quantum of Solace, and so I have a lot of good feelings for that. But it's not. It's more reminiscent of a Bourne movie than it is a James Bond film.
Very much.
Graham, before we came on air, before we started recording, we were discussing actually that Quantum of Solace would actually probably be much higher regarded if it was, say, a John le Carré film adaptation, or Len Dayton, or Robert Ludlum. It's got that sense of, spy thrillers that we all genuinely like, and are always happy to see any of those adaptations. I actually think it came out around about the same time as A Constant Gardener as well, which was a hugely successful John le Carré adaptation. But yeah, this is still not quite Bond, but it's got that, as you said with the first draft, you've got that, the DNA of what is probably a very good story in there. There is enough strong stuff that it holds together, but it feels like it could come from a different author rather than Fleming.
Yeah, completely. I think you've got to put the fact that we are living in a world now that's over 50 years since Fleming died. So the whole story of Bond has changed. But you can see where the direction was going and what Fleming wanted Bond to be. And the panto stuff that we were getting again with Brosnan, and bringing back some of the fun stuff that we had with Moore. It's not that the Craig's films are devoid of those. There is little hints of that there.
This one is, though.
This one is, yeah. This one, there's yeah, it's just no fun. I think that's it. And what fun there is almost done apologetically. It is.
Yeah, there's some really forced, like the seduction of Fields.
Yeah.
Is completely out of.
Oh, well, no,
kilter. I mean, it's perfectly consistent with the character, but it's totally inconsistent with the movie.
Yeah, well, that again is the filler line. It's like Purvis or Wade putting I'll just put this stationary line in there, and then we'll flesh that out later. No, you won't. That's going in.
It's clumsy because it's obviously to set up the fact that Fields is sufficiently engaged with Bond to be able to risk her neck, to be able to later on in the movie to be able to help her out at the party, for which she then gets the ultimate payoff of them being brutally murdered. Yeah. But it's clumsy and it's from another movie.
Yeah, and she gets. But that's the thing, though. I mean, she's almost. It's almost like we don't know what she is. She's almost like a Mary Goodnight in here, really, tripping up the assassin on the stairs.
And it's somewhat a waste of a very, very good actress.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, like, at least she didn't end up like pressing a big button with a bum or anything like that.
No, but I mean that was. I mean, I think that Gemma Arterton played that role extremely well because she played it with a degree of knowingness. Side eye, I think, is the current. There's a lot of side eye to that role. She knows that she's basically being taken the piss out of in this film. Yeah. But she goes along with it. And I think she subsequently said that she probably wouldn't have done this, but because I mean she's got an awful lot more cred than that. But it was just an odd thing because the movie's tone is not that is not the tone of the movie. That's not what this movie is trying to say. Yeah. And yet it's this kind of interlude. And again, it suggests that an unfinished or an unpolished script.
But going back to what Gary was saying, though, about the fact of this could be Ludlam or Dayton or something like that, the whole positioning of the CIA and MI6. Now we've got them playing off each other, and now we've got geopolitics involved, and also environmentalism and things like that. All these manner of things being pulled in, and it really adds another dimension to the relationships between Leiter and Bond, which of course is really, I mean, he's just been a sidekick of Bond throughout the whole franchise up until now, and now he's not. Especially in Casino Royale, he was given this role of being basically he bailed them out, he kept them in the game, and now you've got them. You've got them playing off each other. Leiter's not very, very sure about what they're actually doing in Bolivia. And Bond as well isn't sure about what MI6 are telling him to do as well. So there is a great feeling about two guys actually in the firing line discussing about how they're going to get out of this and what the situation actually is.
But that's where the film goes wrong, is that moment in that bar scene in Bolivia where it's the two of them and it's like, how long have I got? 30 seconds. At this point, the pair of them should have been like breaking out, and there should have been another 20 minutes of those two unraveling all of this stuff and picking apart all of this stuff. And I mean, like the setup was beautiful. You've got like, you know, everyone knows the CIA are awful, right? And everyone knows that, you know, probably British intelligence are awful as well. But all right, and you can buy into the whole centrist, yes, but you know, as long as the right people are in charge, then it's all good, and we're all on the side of the right. But you've got this setup where you've got good guys who are aligning with bad guys. You've got this subplot going on where Bond has killed this special branch agent. You've got quite a lot of internal intrigue and internal politics there. An awful lot to unpick. And you've got plenty of room in this movie where you're normally expected in a Bond film for it to go into at least 2 hours and 20 minutes back in 2007, I'd say, if not longer. Yeah. You know, to actually explore this. And you could have had a bit of a buddy movie in here if you wanted to, and it's completely unexplored. In fact, they go straight to the climax of the movie, and that's for me is almost like it's almost like there's a bad edit there, and it's really disappointing.
Yeah, it's a film that it's interesting actually because I've watched it quite a few times afterwards, and actually I think the idea behind the plot holds up probably better now than it did back in 2007. I mean, I don't know how you kind of feel, Terry, but my thought on the plot is that this kind of real cynicism about the world order, and as well, you've got almost a degree of nihilism that is sitting behind it. Certainly, Bond is there for vengeance as much as anything else.
Totally.
He knows that there's a bit of where the wrong uns are, and then you've got you're bringing environmentalism into it is something which actually could very, very easily have come in. You could take this plot, remake this film again today. You'd probably make a slightly better film, I would say. But the film itself, it holds up because, for me, there's enough in there in that framework and the plot, at least the plot being one of them, that it actually is a weird Bond film insofar as I think that bit ages better than, say, some other Bond films, which tend to get stuck very much in the moment. This is an odd one insofar as it almost preempts a few elements of films in the future where environmental resources are going to become one of the battlegrounds.
If you replace water with lithium, then you've got a modern story right here. Yeah. Right? I mean, like literally, we had Elon Musk saying recently that there should be a coup in an American-backed coup in Bolivia specifically so that they can raid the lithium mines there. If you take water out of that and replace it with lithium, then you've got an incredibly prescient plot, no question about it. You tell a different story now because the politics of 2007 are very different to the politics of 2023. But nevertheless, it's right on the money there, and it is refreshing to see a James Bond film that has the guts to actually address political issues, to talk about the fact that the post-imperial or colonial powers do nasty things in third world countries and in developing countries and ally themselves with unpleasant people. And it's brave that they did that, but it's ultimately disappointing that they didn't explore it a little bit more. I wouldn't expect them to come up with some kind of socialist critique of capitalism and colonialism. It's a James Bond film.
No,
but it would have been good if they just explored it a little bit more.
Yeah, the whole idea of water being the thing that people are trying to control is really good, and it's especially good in, for want of a better word, underdeveloped countries, because of the fact that all of our food that is imported into this country is grown in environments where they use loads of water, loads of natural water there, and people are basically starved of water, so that we get nice fresh lettuce in January. And of course you're not going to go into stuff like that in a James Bond film, are you?
No, you're not. But you can make shortcuts, though. To be fair, you can. The skill in filmmaking is that,
and it makes you think about different things, though.
And there were some nice moments in this movie, though. I mean, like the background shots, particularly in Haiti and in Bolivia, the poverty. I mean, like we're used to in watching James Bond films, we're used to seeing the high life.
Yeah.
Right, and we're used to seeing glamorous locations, but we didn't. I mean, we saw some stunning locations, beautiful photography, but we were, the Bond fan is experiencing poverty and it is. I think it's completely unambiguous in its messaging here. We were experiencing poverty as a consequence of people like James Bond, and the people who watch James Bond films, and so it's turning things back on the viewer, and it's challenging the audience in a way that no James Bond film has ever done. And I appreciate that, and I think it needs to be said.
And Graham, we talked about this last time with Casino Royale, but if you take what Terry said further and you talk about that distrust of the intelligence organisations, again, you start coming back to Jason Bourne. Looming very, very large over it. That audiences are receptive to the CIA not being the good guys.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, both of these films borrow heavily from Jason Bourne. This one even more so, I'd say. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, weren't we, Terry? That you just got to look at the action scenes. The action scenes are brutal. They're very close up. They're very fast. But there are some of the stunts in there, like the jumping through the windows onto balconies, which are shot for shot out of Bourne Identity.
And so the hotel room fight.
The hotel room fight is just completely lifted. All it is a newspaper.
It's a cut down version of the newspaper fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
In Bourne Identity. Yeah.
Which is a bit disappointing because all right, you expect Bond to borrow. it does go.
It's what Bond does.
Yeah.
But
Bond borrows in terms of narrative, definitely, but in terms of action, Bond moves forward, Bond breaks boundaries, and it's disappointing to see that actually they're kind of borrowing the things that actually they lead on.
Because as well, I mean, there are other ways in which it leads, and it does really well in. One scene in particular for me is, which has been copied almost in the Mission Impossible franchise, is the Tosca scene. Now you look at that scene, that Tosca scene, and I think there is probably not one better in the Craig
Damn
thing.
straight.
And it's the best one in this film.
Totally, yeah.
Because the soundscape, the direction is spot on. And I don't know if that was or not. I mean, I don't know how much the second unit was involved in that one, but it looked like Martin Campbell had a lot to do with that one. But I mean, I don't know if that was the case or not. But it is beautiful. Now, there's a very similar scene in one of the Mission Impossible films. I don't know which one it is now, in a theatre, and it's just got none of the drama.
It's Fallout, isn't it? I think
it's Fallout.
It's the second to last one, isn't it?
Yeah.
As we're speaking now.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's too clever.
Yeah.
And because it's all a big setup and there's too many gunmen and it's all a little bit confusing, much like Mission Impossible generally is.
Yeah.
But God, I can't wait to get stuck into that on the landfill. Into those movies.
this, I mean, that is for me one of the highlights. And again, this is why I don't think I can ever call Quantum of Solace a bad film, because when it hits those high notes, it really does.
It's glorious.
You can see what's going on in there.
And the production values. It's a gorgeous film.
It's really
beautiful
film.
But that's the thing. I mean, you know what you don't want to say is this isn't one of those albums that's got 2 belting tracks on it and then like 9 of absolute dross. This isn't one of those. It is a sort of like, it is a concept album that has really, really high points in it, but the rest of it is maybe a bit sort of ahead of its time, or a bit
trying a bit. They've rushed this concept album out without fleshing it through.
They're trying to make a different type of James Bond film, but they're rushing it. Is the issue, and it showed all the way through the film. We just jumped too much between two. There's too much. The audience is being asked to believe too much. And there's just not enough. There's not enough exposition going on in the movie, and unfortunately, the movie's not skillfully edited enough to be able to convey the exposition without spelling it out. Unfortunately, and then you get these rather embarrassing moments where, in fact, you've got, again, I go back to that scene in the bar in Bolivia where you've got essentially, like a Leiter as non-player character telling James Bond where to go next. And then at the end of the movie, you've got Judi Dench explaining, "Oh well, I've squared everything off with the Americans, and Leiter's been promoted." And you think, well, Jesus, there's a whole movie worth in that line of dialogue there that we could have explored, and we've missed. I feel like we've been watching the wrong part of this film.
It's Shakespearean, isn't it? It's Shakespearean. Something else has happened.
While you were doing that, it's like all of this was going on, and so what I'd have liked to have seen a bit of that. There's a scene, and that's the thing, and again, because the movie it misleads you into thinking that they're going to do that. There's that wonderful scene between Judi Dench and Tim Pigott-Smith and the Foreign Secretary, and they get into the real politic of the situation. I think, crikey, I've never seen a thing like this in James Bond before. This is. I mean, where are we? This is usually about megalomaniacs trying to destroy the world. I mean, this is like real stuff. It's good chunky stuff. But that's all we got.
I mean, can you imagine that in the Roger Moore films?
No.
When they're the minister.
Exactly. Max Zorin is a leading industrial. that was basically the extent of political intrigue that you got. But you got a flavour of the kind of film that this could have been, and that you suspect actually wanted to be. But maybe I think it got caught up by its own constraints because of the various external issues that were affecting it, the time pressures, but also maybe at times that it kind of forgot that actually it's a James Bond film and we don't tell these kind of stories.
There is this whole political thing a bit. This is post Blair, isn't it? And this is also
2007, so no. I think it's... Or,
No, it is.
well, I mean, it's...
But
Blair's been in development.
Blair's on his way out because
Yeah.
it's all coming out about the whole...
Yeah,
about
it's
Iraq,
all got a lot of
yeah.
post-Iraq war guilt going on here, isn't it? Yeah. This is what it's the subtext of the movie.
Yeah.
Is. I mean, that's why like Dominic Green, like the actor starred himself on Tony Blair because I mean, he kind of walks back on that later but I mean, he did because there's an awful lot of post-Iraq guilt going on in this movie, which is fun in itself, but is not something that you see in James Bond films necessarily. That's the political element of this film is fun. I like it.
Yeah, and there's plenty of material to be guilty about from the previous 40 years. Why are you starting now?
Yeah. It's so funny because I think where we're coming to with this particular film is that we'd probably enjoy it and rate it a lot higher if it wasn't a Bond film. If you just had this as a spy film, maybe first entry into kind of a burgeoning franchise or something else, we'd probably be going, holy shit, this is a great film. We can't wait to see more of it.
Yeah.
And instead we've got this is not a bad film. It's an enjoyable film, but I'm not watching Bond.
No.
And
no.
I mean, I think if you take it off, slap different names on different characters, we'd be like, we want to see more of this.
Yeah, we would. We'd be saying, hire Daniel Craig as the next Bond. He'd be brilliant at it. Look how good he is in this film. Look how good he is in Another Way to Die. It's
like they just called it Another Way to Die and just like not made it a James Bond film. It would have been brilliant. We'd have had it in the action movie land. We
would have done, yeah.
Well, mind you, it would have been just out of...
There's the film.
Let's not get into that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, and so, it's... This is, I think, where the mixed feelings come from. But also, I mean, Terry, we've talked a lot about the background to the film, the pacing, the narrative. There is a lot to enjoy in here. Part of the... And again, I almost feel with the cast as well, there's a bit of and the characters, there's a bit of a division, because I don't dislike Green as a villain at all.
No.
I don't dislike Camille as a Bond girl. But there's something about it where it just feels that you're missing a little bit out of both of them to elevate them up a bit further into properly feeling like they're Bond, as opposed to just they fit the template well.
Camille's great. I think Camille's a great character.
Camille is very good.
Great Bond girl, very modern Bond girl, and I like the fact that they don't sleep together. I think it's a nice.
That's really nice.
It's distant. I think they treat each other as equals. And I think there's a lot of compassion and quite a lot of love, albeit probably more sort of like fraternal love between the two characters that I really appreciate and really enjoy. Dominic Green, I mean, Matthew Armerick is a fantastic actor, right? And they did well to get him. And I think it's disappointing that they didn't make and get more out of him. I mean, any Bond villain that operates out of a warehouse in Port-au-Prince is no Bond villain, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, but you need a complex, right?
Well,
you've got to have a complex.
I don't know.
He had a hotel in a desert.
I mean, let's face it.
But it wasn't even his hotel.
Let's face it. I mean, like if in his warehouse he was dissolving cocaine into gasoline. I mean, would you have had a bit more respect for him?
No. I mean, what's the name of that character in License to Kill?
Sanchez.
Played by not Sanchez, but who played by Robert Zerb, Crest. That's who he is.
Oh yes.
So he's a secondary Bond villain. It's just somewhat disappointing.
But then again, that's what the Chiffre is, though, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
But that's the real
and I guess
problem
that's
with
where
Green
they're thinking of, isn't it?
And
yeah.
the problem with Green is he's not the Chiffre. And Mads Mikkelsen just delivers a much better.
But the setup. I mean, Mads Mikkelsen benefits from the setup.
Of course he does. Yeah,
they have this elongated poker game to set up this tension.
Yeah, but the whole film is.
And then there's the torture scene as well. The whole. I mean, it's just like none of that. There's no.
Yeah, and the fight scene at the end is completely unconvincing.
It's rubbish. Well. It's completely rubbish.
With the exploding building. Because it's a room full of bombs.
It's like, how do we? Where are all these bombs? What is this? I mean, I know they get away with a lot in Bolivia, but really, gosh.
Right.
I mean, hello, I'd like to speak to the Bolivian Minister of Building Regulations, please.
Don't hang any pictures on these walls.
You don't
really want to drive a nail into these walls.
I mean, it's like the wall, the paint is like explosive or something like that. But it's a shocking. I mean, it's a completely unconvincing because I mean, like everyone knows James Bond could have Dominic Green with his finger. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that. But yeah, these are the other reasons why the film fails. But I think that unfortunately, Dominic Green doesn't get the opportunity to enjoy enough screen time with James Bond to be able to build up that kind of connection and a kind of engagement.
And he doesn't have a henchman as well.
No, he's got that weird guy with the bowl haircut.
Yeah, with the bowl
loves-
wig. Yeah.
I mean, although I mean, this is one of the reasons why I like the film is that during the opera,
yeah,
he turns around and he looks at one of the other henchmen with his look of like, he's clearly moved by what he's watching, and naturally he's looking at him and saying, we can all probably imagine what he's thinking, and it's a really nice moment. And again, you don't see this in James Bond films, and I do like that. I like to see that. It's refreshing, but it's just.
I think if this had been made another time, Green would perhaps have been more like a Scaramanga. I think.
Yeah.
Someone who thinks he knows more about geopolitics than doesn't, or else if it was made now, he'd be more like a Musk, wouldn't he? Really,
he would be Musk.
I think that again, that's for me part of the problem with the film, because there's a lot. I actually don't dislike Green as a character, and we've done a lot on villainry.
Yeah, we certainly have. We did a whole World Cup on it, didn't we?
Whole World Cup of villainry,
and we spoke quite kindly of him, if I remember.
Yes,
even though he didn't rate very well.
But he's also like, there's no problem with having a Bond villain who is physically not Bond's equal, or is there more of a kind of string pulling behind the scenes. It's fine. We've talked, a lot of Erzatz Blofelds that have come through.
Totally. Yeah.
And looking back, he's perfectly believable as a number 4, say, in the organisation.
Yeah,
and it's not out of place for Bond to take on number 4's evil plot for the world at all. So there's a lot that's in there. Like you, I was really wishing that he got more screen time with Daniel Craig, and it's frustrating because again, like the rest of the film, you can see what this character could have been if they just had a bit more time with him.
So much unfulfilled potential about this film, and I think that's
that is the thing, isn't it?
Yes,
there is.
Can we talk about Vesper?
We can.
Could we talk about the Vesper subplot?
Yes.
Because this is another reason why, unfortunately, I think the movie falls down, because it is clearly also a direct sequel to Casino Royale, and it's carrying over the themes from the previous movie, and one of which obviously is Vesper.
Literally carries the theme, doesn't it? In the music.
In the music, well, yes, no, and there's some lovely moments when they use the same they use the same cue, the same theme, Vesper's theme. But the movie doesn't engage with Vesper as much as it should do.
Yeah,
it's obvious. There's not we're being reminded rather ham-fistedly about James Bond's pain, like on the plane on the way over when he's drinking all those cocktails, which is very, very impressive, by the way. And that's a lovely scene with Mathis, but it doesn't. You almost need to have the ghost of Vesper over James Bond's shoulder in this movie.
Yeah.
Not literally, obviously, that would be stupid. But you need to be able to have Vesper's presence needs to be
that's
felt.
what Mathis is there for, though, isn't it? Because Mathis and Vesper do have some great scenes in there.
Absolutely.
When he's doing his John Virgo bit. And it's great that he's in this, because he does.
He's great in it.
And he is needed.
I'm really annoyed with what happens to that character.
Yeah.
But I mean, but for me, it isn't enough. It's still compartmentalised. And for me, there doesn't. And I know they've got that postscript at the end of the movie where he goes to confront, Vesper's former lover. But I mean, it's too compartmentalised. It's too episodic. It's not consistently run through the film. There's moments in this movie where you kind of forget about all of that. And I feel that if it's for it to have been an effective sequel, then I think then more work needs to be done there. And I think that's where the movie fails as well. And I think that's more of a fundamental failure, because that's literally one of the reasons why the movie was made. I mean, in order to carry that on, and I just feel that not enough work was done in that area. You guys may disagree with me, but I mean that's certainly my opinion.
No, I mean, Graham, I was actually thinking that there's a lot of elements that we can take out of this film, and the Vesper being one of them. that would be perfectly fine if you were going for a 10-part TV series to binge.
Oh,
But
yeah.
as trying to push it all into one film is either, they could have gone long, or they could have gone short, or they could have gone over multiple films, and instead they've kind of done none of the above.
Yeah, the whole film is like a previously on Bond. It is that
Obviously
sort of
voiced
chop-
by John Virgo.
Yeah.
It feels like, because it's so short and so condensed and so rushed, it feels like an epilogue to
Yeah.
Casino Royale rather than a sequel.
Yeah.
And we talked as well, Graham, about Casino Royale. Basically, the last half hour of Casino Royale should have been the first half hour of Quantum of Solace.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
you'd have had probably a slightly different film
Yeah.
overall, because tonally it would have given you a lot of shifting.
So would it have worked better, maybe, if the opening reel of this film was like the opening reel of Diamonds Are Forever? With like a first person, Daniel Craig punching through a load of people in various cities around the globe.
You might well have done.
Yes, I think it would have been much better. One chance.
Hit me.
Hit me.
You can see Dominic Grieger making mad pies, 007.
Well, that guy would have been much better as like Camp Blofeld. Totally.
He'd have been
awesome.
That's who he did. That's who he saw. He saw Charles Gray's Blofeld.
Yeah,
and
he
thought,
says,
that's what I'm going for.
because he says he based it on Tony Blair.
No, he didn't.
And Nicolas Sarkozy, but he didn't. He totally based it on Charles Gray. Charles Gray's Blofeld.
So you didn't realise what was going there, did you?
We did not see Blofeld heading it, or Quantum of Solace heading in that direction.
We always
at all.
catch you out like this, don't we, Gary? You'd have thought you'd have known by now.
There's always going to be a left field element. There always is.
Yeah, we've got a whole underground lake of takes.
Yes, wrong cat.
Yes.
It's overall, Terry, you've got to say this is a film that. Where does this actually sit in Bond? Because we've kind of gone. It's not a bad film, but it's not a good film, but it's not a Bond film. It ticks boxes, but it doesn't tick boxes. There are some truly bad Bond films that sit out there. I don't feel this is one of them.
No.
Frustrating potentially, but
Yes.
not bad.
Yeah, frustrating because of what it promises, and it just doesn't deliver. But as a spectacle, as a production piece,
Well, I think, yeah.
it's a really, really well made film.
Yeah.
Even though it's rushed and the edit is rushed, it's a really beautifully produced film. It's beautifully shot, great direction.
I think the main problem with it is because we can all recognise that there's a fantastic film there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing. We are tempted by a fantastic film. Much like Die Another Day. Even worse than that, because Die Another Day just jumps off a cliff. This doesn't. This falls down a very sort of like steep slope and hits itself on rocks along the way, and you think it's going to stop falling, but it's not. Don't.
I was going to say it's they've stepped on one too many rakes.
Yes.
I think it's that bad.
No, and that's the thing about it. And it's not a rubbish film. This is a 3-star Bond film, but there are 3-star Bond films that are never going to get better.
Yes.
There are 3-star Bond films that are just there and what they are, and the ones that you don't pick up off the shelf. There are those ones, and unfortunately, this sits amongst them.
It's not a Bond film that you can revisit and say this needs to be reappraised.
Well, no,
I know people are probably starting to reappraise Quantum of Solace because it's been a while now.
Yeah,
but I think this film is what it is.
No, and I think it's because it's so of its time as well that it's just getting lost. It's dated, and that's what you don't want with a Bond film. You don't want it to date, and this one is dating. This is why it's been largely redacted from the story arc. No, that and the fact that Quantum didn't fit in with the.
Yes,
with
they
the
suddenly got
Spectre
some
thing.
rights in there.
They got
and
the
it's
rights
like,
to Spectre and they had
Yeah.
to backtrack, which is awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
very. You know your villainous organisation. Sorry, we don't need you anymore.
Yeah,
Can you just
well,
head out?
that's the sad thing about it as well. I mean, that again, that's not the film's fault. I mean, if we can assume that the film is an entity with a living entity for a few moments, it suffers from some bad luck. You know, I mean, it's ill-conceived and it suffers from bad luck. And then part of that is that Spectre, the brand, and Spectre the organisation, suddenly as a narrative and a creative content is now available to Eon again after years. And they go, oh, right, okay, well, now we have to walk back. So its credibility is further undermined in subsequent movies as well, which is also not Quantum of Solace's fault.
No, it probably helped for, that it wasn't critically well received, because it made it easier probably for Eon to go, okay, well, you know what? There's always one within each Bond era where people tend to forget it exists, and we do our best to forget it exists. And this is probably our film. We can and will do better, because they obviously learned their lessons well from that when they approached Skyfall. But Graham, I mean, one of the things I think is interesting, you touched on the idea of reappraisal. We've obviously come to the end of Craig's arc.
Yeah.
And you see how that story arc has developed in there. Now that we've come to the end of it, do you look back and go, okay, there are elements of Quantum which actually play a little bit better when you start kind of taking into consideration where Mr. White ended up, where Vesper ended up, where the whole character, narrative ended up by the end of No Time to Die. Does that kind of change things for you at all with Quantum, or you still got the same feelings towards it?
No, I think watching No Time to Die helped Quantum of Solace, because I think at the end of Spectre, Quantum of Solace was basically all it was one A4 picture of Green on in the toilets as he was walking around the gutted carcass of MI6 building.
Worst Lou advert ever.
But then you get into No Time to Die. You've got a good scene, a fantastic scene with White, with the chess table there and everything like that, and that works very well. We'll talk about that when we talk about No Time to Die again, coming up soon, I hope. And also as well, you've got the scene with Felix in the bar and in an exotic city somewhere warm, which is done a lot better. And I think that's what you see from Quantum of Solace. You see the writers and you see the filmmakers think, we could have done that better. Let's do that again, but we'll get something more out of this. So there are films I don't like in the franchise. No, I mean, I'm a big Bond fan, but there are films that I just really think honk, and just make me think, oh god, I'm just not getting that off the shelf. Quantum of Solace isn't one of those films. If this is on ITV4, I'm watching it, because there is enough in there to keep me engaged.
And it's not long before you have to go to bed anyway. So
yeah, exactly. It's short. It's short as well. I mean, I know I'll be able to get up in the morning. However, we're only riffing on it now because it is part of the franchise and it promised so much. And I think the thing about it is that it's there in a good place when Bond's in a good place anyway. It's not like in the Brosnan era where Bond just didn't know where it was. It was lost a bit. And they were making pretty fair stabs at making Bond films when really there was hardly any point to doing it, because the distributor didn't like it, or they just wanted money out of it, and they weren't making great films. They made GoldenEye, and everything after that just deteriorates rapidly. This promises more, and it gets more, and that's the best thing about it, because we get Skyfall next, and then that works brilliantly for everyone.
Terry, anything else you'd like to reappraise with the film?
Well, I'd only like to offer a robust defence of Another Way to Die.
Yes.
I think the treatment of that song is deeply unjust and unfair. The edit that used for the credits in the actual movie is really poor and doesn't do the song justice. But if you listen to the full version on the album, or just listen to the full version of that song, it's a really nice chunky James Bond song with good Bondian riffs in it. And it's got a reassuringly long intro. I think it's a bit of a doff of the hat to Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Personally, I really appreciate and like that song, and I think it's been given a rough deal. And I would urge, if you were going to reappraise any aspect of Quantum of Solace, I would urge James Bond fans to reappraise Another Way to Die, and just a word of love for David Arnold's soundtrack, because it's his last one before he gets replaced. And it's fantastic. Some of the themes in that are absolutely amazing. There's some brilliant themes. I frequently weave in cues from this movie into other episodes of the OddJob pod, because I really like this. I thought David Arnold was a magnificent composer. Tomorrow Never Dies is brilliant, and Quantum of Solace is a fantastic score. And rates very, very highly in my opinion. So I just wanted to add something a little bit about those and give some love to that, and add some Bond authenticity to what is quite an un-Bondian movie. We should also salute the design. I think the graphics, the graphics of this movie are beautiful. The different the establishing shots and the graphics there and the fonts that they use, I think is really, really nice. And although it's irregular to have the gun barrel sequence at the end of the film it is a beautiful gun barrel sequence, and I love the way it stretches out and forms out to the title of the movie as well, Quantum of Solace, and I love the way that they put that at the end there, just to sort of, I don't know, maybe to remind people that they've just watched a James Bond film, but it's just a little bit offbeat, and I like that. And that's when I'm well disposed to this movie, these are things I really like and appreciate about this film. I really like. It's it's offbeat, it's different, it's just about a James Bond film. But yeah, everything, not wishing to take away everything, the criticisms that we've had of it, but it just, it's a really enjoyable, really high quality piece of cinema and a good action romp.
It certainly is. Gary, I feel a bit bad now, because I think we've put this down a bit, and I think we pointed out a lot of negative things about it, and this is a film you actually really like. Do you feel like we put you through the ringer for the last hour or so?
Not at all. I mean,
Okay.
not at all compared to some of our other differing views on certain films that have happened in the past. I appreciate that this is a very flawed film, but I also appreciate that it's a very watchable film as well. Even when things are sagging a little bit, it does enough to keep you in there. It is not it's not of End of Days Brosnan, which, are not great and really can be quite a tough watch. It's not The Man with the Golden Gun, which is a film which, God, if you're talking about frustrating, that's a frustrating film because they wasted Christopher Lee in what should have been a fantastic film. It's a film that, you know what they're trying to do with it. You can see, and I think for me, you either forgive the flaws that are in there and you enjoy it on its own terms, or it really, really irritates you. And if you're one of those people who it really, really irritates you, I'm not going to say that you are wrong, because I can completely see why you would. If you went into this wanting to watch a James Bond film and came out going, what have I just watched? That's a perfectly valid view.
Totally.
But coming out of this film and going, I don't think you can kind of go, this is objectively a bad film. It's just a different film. Whereas, and I've not changed my view, whereas I know we will get to Spectre in a few pods' time. That's a film which I came out enjoying the first one, and on subsequent rewatches, I've really not enjoyed anywhere near as much.
Totally.
Whereas this film, I think I came out probably maybe not enjoying it as much as Spectre, but it stayed at a very similar level for me all throughout. It's a film that has a lot to recommend it. It is very watchable. And again, I think it plays back to a lot of my likes, which are, I love good spy films. And this is a good spy film, objectively. I really like, the novels of Le Carré. I think this, fits in really, really well. You look at, some of my other favourite films that kind of sit within, sit within kind of my favourites that fit in the back. And, you've got things like Day of the Jackal, which is one of my favourite films. There's almost elements you can kind of take from into there of those, Frederick Forsyth mysteries as well. There's a lot that I like about it. And for me, it is just slap somebody different than Bond in it, and I would love this film. I would absolutely love this film. As it is, I like it, but I recognise it for what it is not within there.
Yeah.
So that's my not very blistering hot take that sits somewhere on the same fence that Graham was at the start.
Yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly, really. But I think what you've said is the fact that this promises so much, and you can see that the seeds of it were there, and everyone involved in it could have helped out to produce that film. It was just rushed out, and it's Sony's fault. And Sony, the people responsible for VAR in football, they are there. They are the ones who are responsible for it.
Sony have never achieved anything of value on this planet with the exception of the PlayStation.
What has Sony ever done for us?
Well, actually, into the multiverse.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, Into the Spider-Verse, you mean?
Yeah.
All right, fine.
But beyond the PlayStation.
PlayStations and Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
That is also...
Everything else to do with what they did with Spider-Man pretty much honks, but...
Yes, but Into the Spider-Verse is an absolute masterpiece and the joy of a film.
Yeah.
As is this film. But the only thing is, all I would add to what you said, Gary, and everything you've said is absolutely right. The only thing I would add is that it's a surface level.
Yeah.
All of those things like Ludlam, Le Carré, Dayton, all of that stuff, they go deep. They go deep.
Yeah.
And they're challenging. And Quantum of Solace doesn't really do that. Quantum of Solace challenges the audience in a way that Bond films don't do.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you just think, well, if you're going to make a film like this, then go ahead and make a film like this. Don't just skim the surface. And that's the only thing I'd say. But my God, it's a totally watchable film.
Oh yeah,
There's
totally.
tons of films that are worth.
If you're gonna make a bad Bond film, make a bad Bond film when you're trying to tell a different story, not when you're trying to say, like, just making a film about stealing satellites or nuclear missiles or
invisible cars
or invisible cars. Come up with something. Yeah, or have a denouement on an oil rig,
or just have
or escape from Vegas in drag.
Dominic Green never escaped from Vegas in drag, and maybe that's this film's problem.
Yes.
Actually, you could imagine that. Actually, the scene where the Secret Service guy ends up on the bonnet of his car. If he'd been in the back seat in drag, that would have been
amazing.
That would have.
Yeah, if they'd suddenly dragged him up just to get him out of the building, that would have been. So. Well, that's why they don't put us in charge of things.
No. Well, I'll tell you one thing though that I'll finish off as a thought. If I was in charge of everything in general, one thing that I would commission that I would love to see would be a mini-series on a streaming service solely focusing on the adventures of Mathis.
Yes. Now there's a character that they're a great character, and what a shame.
I would have loved for Mathis to be all throughout the Craig era. This is the bit that actually most annoys me about Quantum of Solace is the killing of Mathis, because he is by far and away one of the best characters of the Craig era, and I want to watch more Mathis. So please, if give me a mini-series of early Mathis.
If you're going to kill a character like that, then you have to have the emotional payoff that goes with it. And unfortunately, I just don't believe that happened because this film is too shallow. So I mean, that was bitterly disappointing what happened to Mathis. I mean, it does happen to guys like Mathis,
Yeah.
But I mean, he's the ultimate Kerim Bey, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah. But I mean, we all wept when Kerim Bey died, and I still weep. Actually weep, but I think it's awful when Kerim, and I feel it when Kerim Bey dies. But for this, I just think, that's just such a waste. It just doesn't feel, that just doesn't feel right at all. But anyway, we're getting into the reeds here, I suspect, with this.
We certainly are.
Something that Quantum of Solace decidedly did not do.
No, not at all. Not at all. He joins for me the list of not minor, but not major characters that I wish we'd seen more of. So I'll put him down on that same list.
When we're done doing these, we'll do a special on Bond allies.
Yes.
Bond allies.
Allies. Yeah, usually the older guys.
Is it going to be Bond allies RAP? The ones
the
that
dead
physically
ones.
died.
Yeah.
Although I would like to put General Pushkin.
We can have
I would
two
love
episodes.
more General Pushkin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's our podcast.
And
we do what we
Gogol
like.
as well.
Yeah. Gogol, I
could get
suppose.
it there.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll put it in the diplomatic bag.
That's a good way to wrap the podcast.
It is indeed. This is one where, I mean, normally when I say, please tell us your thoughts, I'm always basically ready to say, please tell us your thoughts if you disagree with us, but you'll probably be wrong. On this case, I don't think for any listener at all, any opinion you have on Quantum of Solace, I think we've established is largely
It's the
valid.
correct one. Yeah, no, totally.
I would love this to land in whatever subreddit there is of Quantum of Solace fans.
Maybe we need to start r/quantum.
Yeah, we just drop it in ourselves. Can we do that? Is that allowed in Reddit? I don't
It's
know.
probably already there. It's probably already there. It's a very active community.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Still recording and it's already dropped. Yeah.
Sat there going, right, where do we need to go? Where were they recording?
Yeah. So we're recording at Graham's house.
Yes. Anyway, please let us know your thoughts. Do start up a subreddit if you want about this. I'm sure if one does not exist already, and you can leave comments on Facebook. Are we still on X? I don't know.
Well,
reluctantly on X. You can leave a comment on X if you want. Facebook would probably be a better place to be. If you know somebody who is having problems with Quantum of Solace and is a Bond fan, then maybe they might find something. Maybe they may resolve issues by listening to this podcast, and it might put them at peace. Just the same as Terry and Graham spent, about 4 years working through my family issues with the denouement of Moonraker. Maybe this will do the same for somebody else. So please do share this around and help out somebody who potentially has Quantum of Solace issues. But the OddJob pod will be back. It will be back to our normal routine of early mornings and late nights as I fly back to Australia, which probably needs a Bond film. I still think that there should have a Bond film at some point that visits Australia and spends time in there.
Yeah, that's very true. That's
true.
not happened, has it?
No.
Nothing in the thrilling cities really at all, and there's a lot of thrilling cities and desert outbacks. You're perfect place for it.
Well, maybe the Australian Tourist Board haven't stumped up enough dough.
They made Thor: Love and Thunder out there.
They did, and they made Mission Impossible 2 out there as well.
They did.
Yes,
so they've got a lot to atone for.
They certainly do.
Yeah. See that, Australia? See what you've done?
Do better, Australia. Do better.
Really?
Hard to believe this is the country that gave us a picnic at Hanging Rock. Pretty shocking decline, actually.
Or the club.
Or the club, for that matter. Yeah, and indeed Mad Max.
Sort yourselves out, my adopted country. Until then, we bid you farewell and good night. And please do tune in for the next podcast. And if you haven't watched Quantum of Solace, do. And if you're going to Australia, harangue the border guards about not producing a good action movies. Until then, goodbye.
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 I'm not going to be allowed back in the country now, am I?
Love it.
That's a bootable offence, I'm afraid.
That's a massively bootable offence, that is. Sort yourself out, Australia. Well, true though, isn't it?
Yeah, true that.
I feel like